In Coralton, a seaside city that smelled perpetually of sunscreen and kelp chips, people were used to strange sights, surfboard riding dachshunds, juggling pelicans, even the annual parade of retirees on motorized recliners. But the day a 40-foot Pacific Octopus lumbered out of the harbor and applied for a civil service position was the day Coralton realized it had not, in fact, seen everything. The octopus introduced himself, in letters 6 feet tall, squirted in black ink against the seawall, as Calvin C. Calamari. Calvin was polite, curious, and, by octopus standards, impressively civic-minded. Unfortunately, Calvin was also unemployed. The harbor authority didn't need a 40-foot bouncer. The aquarium union insisted he'd take jobs away from smaller tentacled brethren. And the Marine Research Institute said his resume, likes puzzles, camouflage and hugging ships, lacked deliverables. Even so, the mayor, Dottie Bunkle, saw opportunity. Coralton was hemorrhaging money on overtime for traffic control around the new boardwalk. 8 arms, Dottie reasoned, meant 8 times the efficiency. Plus, a mollusk on the payroll looked progressive. With a flourish of ceremonial scissors, she clipped a gigantic velvet ribbon around Calvin's mantle, deputizing him Junior Associate Ocean Adjacency Liaison, Subdivision, Vehicular Flow. In other words, a traffic cop. Sergeant Rita Valdez, Coralton PD's lead crossing guard trainer, was given 1 day to teach Calvin the basics. She met him at sunrise on Pelican Pier, with a duffel bag labeled Intro to Directing Traffic. Inside, she had 1 whistles per minute chart, 1 laminated cheat sheet of hand signals, and 1 slightly chewed stop sign. Calvin leaned in, eyes the size of beach balls blinking with earnest concern. "Glub!" he burbled, which Rita, through context and caffeine, translated as, "I will do my best." "First rule," Rita said, marching up and down the pier with a click of steel-toed boots. "No matter what, remain calm. Drivers can smell fear." Calvin bobbed agreeably. "Second rule, the whistle is your voice." She produced a regulation silver whistle and tossed it high. Calvin's tentacles shot up with the speed of a jack-in-the-box, caught the whistle, and promptly sucked it all the way into a suction cup. The whistle shrieked continuously from inside, like an asthmatic tea kettle. Rita tried not to panic. "All right, we'll fetch that later. Next comes hand. Well, tentacle, signals." She demonstrated. Left arm out. Palm up for stop. Arm rising and falling for slow. Big sweep for go. Calvin unfurled 2 tentacles, then 4, then 8, attempting simultaneously to replicate every gesture. The effect resembled a hyperactive car wash octopus from Saturday morning cartoons. Rita contemplated retirement, but the mayor wanted a ribbon-cutting photo op at 9 a.m., so training concluded. Rita slapped a neon safety sash onto Calvin's mantle, slapped herself with 2 aspirin, and escorted the cephalopod to Sailfish Circle, Coralton's busiest coastal roundabout. Drivers slowing to merge saw a 40-foot orange traffic cop swaying over the intersection like a living inflatable tube man, and reacted much as one might expect. They fumbled for phones, screamed at children to look, forgot brake pedals existed, or did all 3. A scooter courier plowed into a fruit stand, scattering mangoes like sticky billiard balls. A tour bus driver fainted onto the horn, producing a flatulent moan that harmonized eerily with the distant whistle lodged inside Calvin's arm. Rita blew her own whistle to restore order. Calvin, misinterpreting the pitch, waved 6 tentacles simultaneously, 2 signaling stop, 3 signaling go, and 1 improvising semaphore for "Is lunch included?" Gridlock blossomed like a red tide. At one point, Calvin, trying to untangle a knot of compact cars, simply picked them up one by one and set them, shining and bewildered, onto the median. Passengers emerged woozy, clutching half-eaten churros, and stories their insurance agents would never believe. Within 20 minutes, Octocop was trending. Influencers abandoned brunch to live stream the spectacle. A violinist set up on a mailbox and composed Concerto in C for cephalopod and commuters, accompanied by a chorus of honking horns. The mayor, watching from her office, phoned Rita. "Teething pains," she chirped. "People love it. Keep him out there." Rita, trapped between the twin hells of command responsibility and a being capable of bench-pressing yachts, complied. Day 2 began before dawn. Rita thought maybe a calmer environment would help, so she stationed Calvin on Starfish Way, a sleepy coastal road used mainly by joggers and gulls. It stayed quiet until the fishing fleet returned mid-morning, trailed by vans delivering fresh catch to restaurants. Calvin decided that fish trucks had right of way, professional courtesy. He plucked them from the queue, escorting each van by lifting it overhead like a mother crab transporting eggs. Other drivers understandably balked. Some reversed down the street. A tandem bicycle crashed into a gelato cart, producing a dairy slick on the asphalt. Calvin, thinking it helpful, sprayed water from the bay to rinse the road, only to create a slip and slide, on which 10 more cyclists wiped out in slow aquatic ballet. Rita sprinted over, shouting, "No water! Bad!" She realized too late how that might sound like she was addressing a golden retriever, but Calvin crumpled anyway, 8 shoulders slumping. The lodged whistle emitted a plaintive wheeze. "Look," Rita sighed. "Let's try fundamentals." She sketched "stop" in giant chalk across the lane. "When you see a car coming, point at the word." Calvin nodded. The next vehicle was a delivery truck, transporting 15 live flamingos for the resort's sunset yoga class. Calvin pointed at "stop," but with enthusiasm. His tentacles slammed down like Thor's hammer, cracking pavement and launching the chalky letters airborne. The flamingos jolted, flapped wildly in the truck bed, escaped, and promptly trudged into the marina, where they attacked paddle boats shaped like swans. Somewhere, a child's birthday party collapsed into squawks. By lunchtime of day 2, the city had issued 3 separate disaster declarations: avian menace, gelato slick, an unscheduled abrasion of pavement due to cephalopod appendage. The mayor's voicemail overflowed with citizen complaints and 1 marriage proposal for Calvin, because I too have trouble with multitasking. Still, tourism revenue was skyrocketing. That evening, during emergency City Hall deliberations, Councilman Chuck Budget Hawk Lindsay snorted. How bad can a traffic octopus really get? The universe, which dislikes rhetorical questions, answered on day 3. A dense fog rolled in before dawn, and Calvin, bored and seeking enrichment, discovered the box of confiscated road flares in the patrol car. To him, they resembled bioluminescent squid. He lit them for comfort and waved them about. Fog glow around a massive silhouette with 8 fiery appendages, convinced early morning commuters Coralton was being invaded by cosmic kraken. 10 car alarms went off in solidarity. Someone dialed talk radio, screaming about the apocalypse. The morning anchor, half awake, dispatched Chopper 6 and recommended listeners seek higher ground or at least grab a decent camera. Up in the sky, Chopper 6's feed showed Calvin dancing with flares like a rave octopus DJ. The pilot laughed so hard, he accidentally clipped a billboard advertising clam chowder, sending clam-shaped confetti across the interstate. Calvin, mistaking the falling debris for distressed birds, tried to catch each piece delicately. Traffic below came to a dead halt as drivers recorded bonus footage. The mayor convened another emergency session. Public Works Director Sheila Pinch recommended paving an octopus-only thoroughfare. Deputy Chief Wu proposed automated signals run from a safe bunker. Councilman Lindsay suggested firing Calvin into space, or at least Fresno. Only Tourism Commissioner Joel Rockman remained optimistic. "We've booked 6 cruise ships full of influencers!" During debate, a call came in from Harbor Control about a runaway cruise ship, the SS Winnebago of the Seas, whose steering had jammed. Rita seized the moment. "Calvin can help. He's strong enough to realign a ship's rudder." "Fine," the mayor said. "Redirect him to maritime emergencies. Effective immediately. He's harbor auxiliary." No one revoked his traffic authority, though. That omission would prove critical. Calvin gleefully slid into the bay, sending a wave that soaked the council chamber's first floor to find the SS Winnebago floundering sideways, horn bleating like an asthmatic bull. He wrapped 2 tentacles around the hull and heaved. The passengers cheered, tossing him shrimp cocktails in thanks. Calvin beamed, as much as an octopus can, then decided the displaced cruise ship should dock immediately at Pier 3, the quickest berth. Pier 3, however, was already occupied by a barge, carrying 300 brand new electrified traffic lights. Calvin set the cruise ship gently onto the barge, toppling the cargo into the bay. Sparks flew. Fish fled. Harbor Control fainted. Meanwhile, a city electrician named Matty Fletcher watched thousands of expensive smart signals sink and screamed so loudly the mayor heard it through 3 panes of hurricane glass. By evening, Coralton's entire quarter-year infrastructure budget had literally gone overboard. Rita found Calvin resting under Pier 4, sucking gloomily on a rusted anchor like a pacifier. The whistle, still lodged, emitted tiny squeaks of self-pity. "It's okay," Rita told him. "You saved lives." "Blub?" he asked, meaning, "Why does everyone look angry?" "They'll get over it." Rita patted his dome, which felt like a damp couch cushion. For 2 days, Calvin stuck to the harbor, dutifully unsnarling fishing nets, collecting lost sunglasses, and pointing kayakers toward calmer currents. Accidents dropped 90%. The mayor, breathing easier, scheduled a press conference on Gull Plaza, right beside Sailfish Circle where the calamity had begun. Her plan: praise Calvin's heroics, announce expansion of the harbor auxiliary, and maybe sneak in a re-election slogan: 8 arms, 1 city. The morning of the conference dawned crisp, cloudless, perfect for news cameras. Calvin was asked to make a cameo, waving politely from the center of Sailfish Circle. "No directing traffic," Rita warned. "Just stay very still and friendly." Calvin practiced friendly stillness, 2 eyes wide, tentacles folded, like a gigantic plush toy. Drivers slowed to snap photos. All appeared well, until an ice cream truck's jingle, "Pop Goes the Weasel," drifted through the air. Calvin loved that tune. It reminded him of bubble crabs from his childhood reef. Instinct trumped instruction. Calvin started clapping 8 tentacles in rhythm. Up, down, wiggle, wiggle, snap. The movement resembled flamboyant semaphore. Cars interpreted the flails as contradictory commands. Some stopped, some accelerated. One sightseeing trolley executed an abrupt K-turn that would have impressed a Moscow ballet company. Rita lunged forward, whistle in mouth, blowing so vigorously she burst a capillary in her cheek. Calvin, hearing the familiar trill from inside his own suction cup, spun around excitedly, entangling 3 flagpoles and a decorative topiary moose. The mayor, mid-speech, felt a tentacle brush her podium, inadvertently depressing the microphone button that triggered citywide sirens for tsunami drills. Sirens wailed. Tourists panicked. A flash mob scheduled for the plaza, themed Silent Disco Against Climate Change, assumed the appointed time had come to fake faint for dramatic effect. Onlookers thought they'd been poisoned by cephalopod mucus. EMTs arrived to discover 200 people lying peacefully in neon headphones. Then, as if orchestrated by cosmic timing, a real emergency struck. A propane truck heading to the pier lost brakes on the hill above Gull Plaza. The driver, eyes wide, laid on the horn. Calvin, glimpsing the vehicle barrel down, knew enough about traffic to recognize catastrophe. Without waiting for permission, he shot a tentacle out like a bungee cord, suctioned the cab, and yanked the truck sideways. Momentum carried the tanker in a wild arc. It somersaulted softly onto a patch of beach volleyball sand, dislodging exactly 1 seagull and 0 humans. The plaza fell silent, save for a single petrified gull slowly flying away in shame. Cameras captured everything. Headlines flipped overnight. Octopus menace transformed into hero mollusk saves city from fiery doom. The mayor cut the rest of her speech, slapped Calvin with a key to the city, plastic just in case, and announced a special committee to explore his unique traffic management methodology. Rita, still woozy from siren overload, muttered, "Unique is one word for it." For a week, Calvin was Coralton's darling. Children drew him on sidewalk chalk. A local brewery released Tentacular IPA. Even Councilman Lindsay wore a t-shirt that read, "Embrace the suck! Octocop forever!" Yet the question remained, could Calvin, hero or not, remain a traffic cop? The answer arrived, hand-delivered by fate, during the annual Sea to Sky Marathon, when 10,000 runners clogged Coralton streets, while motorists circled in fury. Calvin was assigned a critical intersection at the foot of Gull Bridge, where racecourse met downtown traffic. Rita prepositioned every spare officer, installed portable traffic lights as redundancy, and gave Calvin one rule: let the gadgets do the work. Hands, tentacles, off. For the first 40 minutes, things ran smoothly. Calvin hovered above like a guardian kraken angel. Runners darted through. Cars waited their turn. A pleasant sea breeze fluttered banners. Then a stray drone camera, piloted by an overzealous vlogger, veered close to Calvin's face. Mistaking it for an aggressive seagull, he swatted. The drone pinwheeled into the portable control box, shorting the system. All lights went dark. Rita, seeing red and blue bulbs fade in real time, bolted forward. "Manual override!" she shouted. Officers grabbed handheld stop signs. Runners kept coming. Drivers leaned on horns. Calvin, desperate to help, but banned from touching, improvised. He pulled 2 inflatable Dancing Man mascots from a nearby car dealership display and anchored them in each lane. One wacky tube man he pumped full of air from his siphon to signal vehicles. The other he left deflated to create a low hurdle, funneling runners. A third tentacle he used to hold a giant Slurpee cup from the corner store as makeshift megaphone. Through it, he produced rhythmic whooshes approximating instructions. Miraculously, it worked. Briefly, crowd energy turned carnival-like. Runners whooped, leaping the deflated tube man. Cars inched forward, mesmerized by the gyrating air puppet. But physics has a sense of humor. A gust of wind caught the inflated dancer, flipping it onto a street lamp, where it burst with the sound of an elephant sneeze. Startled drivers stomped accelerator and brake simultaneously. 2 fenders kissed. Calvin, startled in turn, instinctively released a puff of ink. In open air, the ink manifested as opaque mist, blanketing everything in gothic gloom. Blind chaos erupted. Spectators fled. Runners slipped on ink-slick asphalt. Rita facepalmed so hard her hat spun. Yet in the swirling darkness, a siren wailed. Real this time. An ambulance, lights strobing, needed passage for a dehydrated marathoner. Calvin, hearing the siren and tasting his own ink, remembered the propane truck. Action overcame anxiety. He plunged 6 tentacles into the roadway, feeling with suction cups for vibrations, echolocating vehicles. One by one, he lifted cars, placing them on sidewalks like fragile origami. With 2 remaining arms, he scooped runners aside, gently depositing them onto hay bales by the spectator area. The ambulance rolled through unimpeded, paramedics flashing thumbs up out the windows. When the ink cloud drifted away, the intersection looked like a toddler's playmat after cleanup time. Orderly piles of cars, neat rows of runners, and Calvin beaming despite black smudges on his cheeks. A hush fell, followed by thunderous applause. Later, city officials tallied results. 1 minor bumper dent, 12 sprained ankles, ink-related, an ambulance ETA improved by 90 seconds, and tens of thousands of live-stream views depicting cephalopod heroics in smoky noir ambiance. Insurance companies grumbled, but tourism spiked once more. Despite the applause, the mayor finally accepted reality. "We can't afford another miracle," she admitted to Rita. "The next stunt could sink us, literally." So the council, in bipartisan accord, created a brand new post, Ambassador of Aquatic Public Relations and Emergency Heavy Lift Operations, stationed at the Carrollton Marine Discovery Center. Calvin would greet visitors, demonstrate knot tying with donated Buicks during scheduled shows, and remain on call for true catastrophes, tsunamis, runaway ships, or rogue flamingo stampedes. On his last day as traffic cop, Calvin stood in Sailfish Circle, surrounded by cones and bouquets. Rita approached with a ladder, climbed to eye level, and produced a small velvet box. Inside lay a gold-plated whistle on a chain long enough for Calvin to drape around his mantle. She pried the old whistle from his suction cup with tweezers, then clasped the necklace. "For services rendered," she said, saluting. "And for not eating anybody, which honestly exceeded expectations." Calvin clicked his beak appreciatively and blew the new whistle. The tone was crisp, clear, and would never again direct a single sedan. Years later, locals still refer to Carrollton's golden summer of Jodder's Octocop. Tour guides point at dents and medians and swear you can almost see suction cup outlines. Parents tell children the story when teaching them road safety. If a 40-foot octopus can cause that much chaos, you can look both ways. And every so often, when fog settles over the bay just so, seagulls swear they hear a whistle's lonely peep, followed by the gentle rhythmic applause of 8 tentacles keeping time to an ice cream tune through the night.